Part 70. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 691. Why are you here? Ruan Qingying went straight into Qingling's room and looked at Qingling, who was sitting in the room in shock. Shouldn't you be in? Where should you be? Qingling asked calmly. Sister, do you think I should stay with Mr. Ye? Ruan Qingying froze and looked at her in disbelief. Mr. Ye and sister should be a perfect match. Qingling smiled faintly and wished sincerely, I hope that after you get married, you will live with Mr. Ye forever and love each other. Ruan Qingying pursed her lips and looked at Ruan Qingling with doubt in her eyes. She didn't know what went wrong. Why was the person who was supposed to be with Mr. Ye sitting in her room at this time? Big sister, go and do your work. You don't have to stay with me. Qingling smiled lightly. I won't give you a dowry, nor will I. I'm afraid it's not up to you. Ruan Qingying said coldly, your marriage can only be decided by your mother. Do you think you are superior to others just because you have served His Majesty for a while? There are so many palace maids around His Majesty. One more or one less won't make a difference. Second miss. Good news, the maid hurried over to report. She could hear the excitement in her voice from a distance. Her Majesty the Queen has granted the second miss a marriage. The imperial edict has arrived. It was personally conveyed by the 9th master of the Xie family. Everyone has heard it? Second miss. Ruan Qingying's face changed. Qingling smiled faintly, big sister, do you believe what I said now? The maid walked into the room and was about to shout, but she saw Ruan Qingying there. Her face was startled, and she bowed to Ruan Qingying respectfully, meet the eldest lady. Your Majesty granted marriage. Ruan Qingying looked at her coldly, who did you grant marriage to? The second lady. The maid excitedly said, Second Master Chu. Everyone heard it? As she said that, she excitedly pulled Qingling's arm. Is the second lady happy? Her Majesty granted marriage. It's such an honor, the uncle must be very happy. This is the good deeds of the ancestors. The second lady must be very favored by His Majesty in the palace. Qingling smiled, Your Majesty's grace, I am lucky in 3 lives. Ruan Qingying clenched her hands tightly, stared at Qingling for a long time, turned around and left. The eldest lady doesn't seem very happy. The maid looked at Ruan Qingying's back thoughtfully, not understanding why she was unhappy. Then she thought of another thing and quickly looked at Qingling again. There is one more thing, second miss, His Majesty asked you to open a women's cottage, right? Can you take me with you? I'll go and do odd jobs for the second lady. Second miss. When she was excited, she couldn't help shaking Qingling's arm and begging, women's cottage, it sounds very grand. Qingling laughed, it's not open yet, wait a minute. The maid sighed, is the second lady going back to the palace? I'll pack clothes for the second lady. Qingling ignored the chattering maid and turned to the window. The Ruan family mansion was not big and could not be compared with the real grand mansions of the rich and powerful. Standing in the inner courtyard, you can vaguely hear some lively and cheerful sounds. Someone kept congratulating her father and showing goodwill to Chu Nanyi. Qingling covered her eyes and a gentle smile appeared on her lips. Because of an imperial decree, Chu Nanyi, the illegitimate son of the Chu family who was not noticed by others, suddenly became a popular young man. The originally low-key person could no longer be low-key in an instant. After leaving the Ruan family, someone handed him an invitation in the afternoon, inviting him to attend this poetry meeting, that flower meeting, or when someone's elder's birthday will be. Chu Nanyi couldn't help but sigh secretly, as expected, when you are famous, you will have more gossip. However, this is also inevitable. The mentality of people in the court and the court chasing the powerful is the same as the wind direction in the harem. Whoever the king favors will be in the limelight. Even the palace people know how to change their attitude according to the wind, let alone the young masters of the noble families who are used to all kinds of scenes outside. Ruan's marriage to the illegitimate son of the Chu family was not a striking thing. What made people pay attention was that this was a marriage personally granted by Her Majesty the Queen, which was inlaid with gold and could not be ignored. Chu Nanyi felt tired. He really didn't want to deal with those messy relationships. The only consolation was that now everyone in the imperial capital knew that Qingling was his daughter-in-law. They were destined to grow old together in this life with the words imperial grant. They could not divorce each other. And Qingling would be looked up to wherever she went in the future, and would no longer be looked down upon because of her identity as a female doctor. Qingling had lunch at home and returned to the palace. She didn't stay for too long. The first thing she did when she returned to the palace was to thank the emperor. Nangzi was grinding ink for Ranjiao. During this period, Ranjiao couldn't go to court. After she came back from court, she spent all her time with him. They were inseparable when reviewing memorials. After listening to Qingling's brief account of what happened in the Ruan family, Nangzi said indifferently, "Your stepmother's attitude is very puzzling. Even if she didn't like the concubine's daughter, she shouldn't despise the imperial decree of marriage. She was so smart that she planned to confirm Qingling's affairs before the imperial decree. What on earth was she trying to do? She should be asking for the extra betrothal gift from the Ye family." Qingling lowered her eyebrows and said, "Big brother has been living a life of luxury outside and owes a lot of money." Nan 11's expression suddenly became subtle when she heard this. "This is what it means to be blind to gold and jade, isn't it? He owes a lot of money. Chu Nanyi is a man with a lot of gold and silver, but Madame Ruan looks down on him. She insists on committing suicide for the mere betrothal gift from the Ye family. It's really hard to say what to say. But after all this trouble, Chu Nanyi would definitely kill her. She dared to push the woman he liked into the arms of another man. The seemingly gentle Chu Nanyi might not be so easy to talk to. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered." Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 692. Nan 11 didn't intend to pay attention to this matter. After all, the king is the one who governs the world. He occasionally listens to interesting things to pass the time in his free time, but he doesn't have that much energy to take care of other people's housework. There was a dandy in the Ruan family. It was Zipping Bo and his wife who failed to teach their son well. He was originally a nobleman without real power. Instead of teaching his son to study and revitalize the family, they allowed him to spend money outside like water. If he didn't fall, who would? Such people are destined to withdraw from the circle of powerful people, but it is only a matter of time. You and Nanyi can discuss the wedding date yourself in the next 2 days, or go back and ask Mrs. Chu for instructions." Nan 11 said calmly, "The second thing is that I am concerned about the thatched cottage, but don't be in a hurry, settle your marriage first, and then do something else." Qingling responded, "Yes." Nan 11 didn't say anything else, because Rong Yu, who was reading the memorial, seemed to have a bad expression. She signaled Qingling to step back and turned to look at Rong Yu. "What's wrong?" "I haven't been to court for a few days. They probably thought I was dead," Rong Yu said in a cold voice, throwing a booklet on the case, "starting to test my bottom line again." Nan 11 laughed, picked up the book and looked through it. As expected, she was still determined to persuade His Majesty to accept the imperial husband's memorial. "These ministers are probably well fed," Nan 11 sighed. "What do I need so many royal husbands for? If they are worried about heirs, now that the prince has been born and the heir apparent has been established, what else do they want to do? The peaceful life has been too long. Don't you feel comfortable if you don't do something?" Rong Yu didn't speak and was obviously not in a good mood. "Stay in the Dajhan Palace for the whole winter. After the new year, I will allow you to go to court in the spring." Nan 11 sat over and kissed his face. "It's been too cold these 2 days. You can't ignore yourself just because of 1 or 2 stubborn old men body." Rong Yu was so comforted by her that he immediately lost his temper, but his tone was still cold. "From now on, we should set a rule. Anyone who mentions the matter of accepting the emperor's wife will be sent to the border to build the city. Nan 11 smiled and nodded, it's feasible. Rong Yu turned his head to look at her, and the corners of his lips couldn't help but curl up. 11 Huh, Nan 11 smiled lightly, do you think I'm particularly gentle and kind, so good that I feel very happy? Rong Yu nodded, yes. You too. Nan 11 touched his face, but it's good to be happy, you still have to work, you can't be lazy. Rong Yu smiled low, took her hand, put it to her lips and kissed her. I obey Her Majesty the Queen's will. The Ruan family exploded that night. The people from the Huatong Bank came to the door again, and in front of 11 Pingbo's family, they strongly demanded that the Ruan family pay back the money. If they didn't pay back, they would directly sue the Dali Temple and put Ruan Kong in jail. Tao looked at the two men with cold and hard attitudes in front of her, and thought of what Chu Nanyi said during the day. Her heart sank. Can you give me a 2-day extension? I've already had grace for many days. Huatong's clerk sneered, you are planning to delay the payment, right? Do you want to default on the payment? Mr. Tao's face looked extremely ugly. Did he refuse to pay? The Huatong bank account has a strong background, who dares to rely on their account? Uncle Zipping had a gloomy expression, glared at Ruan Kong, and said in a deep voice, how much money does the family have? Mrs. Tao groaned, no. Not much. How much is not more? Mrs. Tao's face turned pale, master, that little money is used to buy Ying'er's dowry. Take it out, Uncle Zipping roared angrily. Today's birthday celebration mood was completely ruined. Do you want to go to jail yourself, or do you plan to send this traitor to jail? Ruan Qingying clenched her hands and stood aside silently, her expression pale. The family didn't have much money left, so she still had to buy her dowry, otherwise she would be looked down upon by the Ye family if she married in the future. It would be even harder to move forward without a dowry. Why didn't her father consider it for her? And brother, when you are spending a lot of money outside, have you ever thought that your family is already struggling? Why can't such a grown-up learn to be more sensible? He spends all his time doing nothing and causing chaos in the family. Ruan Qingying gritted her teeth and secretly resented that she had such a prodigal and incompetent brother, and even more hated that she did not have a capable father. If her father had been promising, she could wear silks, satins, and jewelry like those noble ladies in front of others. The scenery is endless, and there are people who pamper and support you when you come in and out. How can it be like now, when a noble house is actually being chased by people to demand payment? It was extremely embarrassing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 693. Chu Nanyi's wedding date was set for the 20th day of the 12th lunar month. Madame Chu renovated his entire courtyard and prepared all the necessary items. Although it was a marriage granted, the necessary procedures were also followed. The betrothal gifts were ordinary, not much, but not shabby either, completely in accordance with the standard for a concubine's son to marry a wife. Mrs. Chu originally wanted to prepare more, after all, His Majesty granted the marriage, so there had to be a show. As a result, Chu Nanyi said calmly, after the marriage, money will be needed everywhere. Mother saved the silver for me and Qingling to use after the marriage. There is also a cottage that will cost a lot of money, so don't waste too much on the betrothal gifts. Madame Chu listened to the words and understood that Chu Nanyi did not want to make a bargain for the Ruan family, so the betrothal gifts were ordinary, and there was no deliberate emphasis on being grand and lavish. As for Qingling's dowry, Ruan couldn't prepare too much for her. Besides, there was also an eldest daughter Qingying getting married. With the current economic situation of Zipping Bafu, it was really beyond their ability. Chu Nanyi had never thought about how much dowry Qingling could have. Anyway, this girl married him and didn't need to rely on dowry to live. Chu Nanyi will definitely have more luxurious clothes and food than her eldest sister in the future. The Ye family didn't know how to negotiate, but the marriage with the eldest daughter of the Ruan family was also set, and the date was 2 days later than that of Chu Nanyi and Qingling. Originally, according to the rules of seniority, the Ruan family should let the eldest daughter Ruan Qingying get married first, but Lord Ye was an official in the court, and his brain was better than Tao's. He didn't dare to steal the limelight from the Chu family. In addition to the fact that the Chu family was more prominent, it was also because it was a marriage granted by His Majesty himself. How could the Ye family dare to act big? Anyway, it didn't matter to the Ye family who was older and younger between the two daughters of the Ruan family. The Ye family only married them, regardless of the order of seniority. So the Ye family married 2 days later, and naturally the eldest daughter of the Ruan family got married 2 days later than her sister. This was difficult for Ruan Qingying to accept, and even became a joke for many girls in the boudoir. However, Chu Nanyi was indifferent to this. On the day of the wedding, many guests came to the Chu family to watch the ceremony and drink. The wedding was very lively and the bride was very beautiful. His Majesty sent people to reward a lot of gold, silver, and silk, which made the people who came to congratulate envy. There was another good news in the 12th lunar month. Yanyu was pregnant. When Qingyang told His Majesty the good news with a happy face, the always sturdy and mighty Miss Yanyu rarely showed a bit of shyness. Nangzi was happy and rewarded a set of gold bowls and utensils for the baby, clothes and shoes for the baby, gold locks and silver bells and other trivial things on the spot, and allowed Yanyu and Qingyang to take a vacation at any time. The Dajhan Palace was filled with a lot of warmth and joy because of these two happy events. However, for the ministers in the court, it was not a big deal for the Chu family's illegitimate son to marry, and Yanyu's pregnancy was certainly not something they needed to pay attention to. This news would not be passed on to the court. Instead, the regent did not attend the court throughout the winter, which made them feel that the situation was extremely abnormal. The ministers' old problems came back, and they began to have many speculations involuntarily. Some people suspected that there was something wrong with the regent's health, and they tried to confirm the regent's physical condition through some clues cautiously and roundaboutly. Some people thought that Her Majesty was going to start taking back the power of the regent, and that the Dongling Shirji would be decided by Her Majesty alone in the future. Her Majesty was already an adult and could rule the country alone, and the existence of the regent was redundant. Her Majesty needed a husband, not a regent husband. Some people also speculated whether there was a problem with the relationship between Her Majesty and the regent. If there was really a rift, did it mean that others had a chance? Therefore, the memorials advising His Majesty to marry a royal consort began to stir again in the past 2 days, which made the regent unhappy several times. When Her Majesty was not in Dajhan Palace, the palace was filled with low pressure, and the palace people dared not breathe. They were always looking forward to Her Majesty coming back from court to appease this man who was drowned in a jar of vinegar. During this period, Chu Nanyi became a frequent visitor to Dajhan Palace. He would go to Dajhan Palace to pay his respects every 2 or 3 days. Although Rong Yu's health could not be completely cured under his conditioning, it did improve greatly. Every day, he kept warm, sweated, bathed, had acupuncture, and took a medicinal bath. This cycle continued. This continued until New Year's Eve. The court officials were on holiday, and Nan 11 did not have to go to court anymore. She could stay in Dajhan Palace for 12 hours every day to accompany Rong Yu. Xianyu and Qi and Chu Hongii also had a holiday and went back to reunite with their family. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 694. This year's New Year's Day is quite special. Her Majesty is pregnant, with a belly of more than 5 months. Yin beside her is also pregnant, and it has just been more than 2 months, and she has not yet passed the dangerous period. In order to be on the safe side, Her Majesty always reminds her to pay attention to protecting the fetus and not to do any violent movements. Even Qingyang has become cautious and worried. In addition, Xianyu and Qi and Chu Hongii also stayed in the palace to accompany the emperor all day, and did not have much time to accompany their son. Therefore, Nan 11 only kept the ministers in the palace for the New Year's Eve dinner. There was no long-term stay-up banquet, but the ministers were asked to go back to accompany their families. After dinner, Xiejin and Xianyu Enyao stayed in Dajhan Palace to play with the prince for a while, and took the initiative to leave before Rongyu opened his mouth to drive them away. Rongyu, Nan 11 and Hao Er's family of 3 were happily staying in Dajhan Palace. Originally, Nan 11 wanted to invite her mother to the palace to stay up together, but the princess now had her own quiet happiness and didn't want to disturb her daughter and son-in-law, so she stayed in the princess's mansion. Although this year's New Year's Eve was not as noisy as in previous years, there was a kind of peaceful and warm happiness that made people feel very relaxed. Hao Er, who was almost 2 years old, was more articulate. In addition to his father and mother, he could clearly call out father, mother, aunt, uncle, auntie, and many other names, and could express some simple meanings. Among children of the same age, he had clearer thinking and articulation, and was particularly smart and learned things quickly. This night was New Year's Eve, a festival for fun and relaxation. Rongyu did not test him on any homework, but held Hao Er and Nan 11 to stand on the palace building to watch the fireworks. The father and son both had the same handsome and cold facial features, and they had the noble and aloof aura of the royal family, which made Nan 11 more and more satisfied as she looked at them, with a gentle smile on her face. The night sky was full of bright fireworks, and the lights were shining brightly, illuminating the entire sky. The long street outside the palace was bustling with people, and the sound of firecrackers and children's laughter made this New Year's Eve as joyful as in previous years. Even though this empress did not have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, and there were not so many concubines accompanying the king during the holidays, this kind of satisfaction and fulfillment from the heart at this time was incomparable even with the company of many people. However, look, Nan 11's eyes fell on the prosperous long street. This is your country, your society, and the well-being of the people in the world will be your responsibility in the future. Hao opened his clear and clean eyes like glass, looking at the prosperous world in front of him, his little mouth pursed lightly, and even his expression was very similar to his father's. Prosperity is only a corner of the world. The emperor's feet are the richest place in the world. Nan 11's voice was soft and calm. There are many different places waiting for you to see when you grow up. There are prosperous and desolate places, rich and poor places. The king cannot make everyone live the same life, but he can make most people live a relatively stable and prosperous life. Hao didn't know if he could understand it. His ignorant eyes blinked, and his white and tender hands wrapped around his father's hair, wrapping around and around, just looking at the end of the long street quietly. It's windy at night, let's go back. Nan 11 turned around, stretched out his hand to gather the wide cloak on Rongyu, and completely wrapped Hao's small body. It's hard to keep your body better. Don't let the cold wind blow and ruin it. Rongyu laughed, it's not that serious. It made him seem like a delicate girl who was weak and fragile. However, he was indeed treated as a weak patient during this period. Nan 11 always treated him as a fragile vase with caution, so that he had no position to care about Nan 11 now. He always felt that the roles of the two people had been completely reversed. The family of 3 walked down the tower and turned to walk towards the Dajhan Palace. Entering the palace, the warm breath hit them. Rongyu held Hao and walked to the couch to sit down. After he was fully adapted to the temperature in the palace, he took off his cloak and let the palace servants hang it up. Time flies so fast. Nan 11 looked at his son's pretty little face, and a smile rose at the corner of his lips. In a blink of an eye, he is almost 2 years old. Rong Yu didn't say anything, but his expression was just as gentle. Time really flies. In a blink of an eye, they have been in Dongling for more than 2 years. Many things seem to have passed a long time ago, but when they look back, they seem to have happened yesterday. How Nan 11 stroked her bulging belly. Do you want a sister or a brother? How stood on his father's lap, his voice soft and tender. Brother. Nan 11 was surprised. Don't you want a sister? Yes. How thought for a while. This is a brother. Nan 11 was silent for a long time after hearing this. How means, this is a brother in my mother's belly. How nodded. Children's words can't be taken for granted. Rong Yu said, he doesn't have the final say. Nan 11 frowned, but there seems to be a saying among the people that if a woman is pregnant and has an eldest son or daughter, if she is asked whether she wants a sister or a brother, the child's answer is usually very accurate. Rong Yu was suspicious. Is that true? It is said that children's words are innocent, and I have never heard of children's words being prophecies. Nan 11 looked at her son. How is this baby really a little brother? How pouted, turned his head to look at his expressionless father, and then looked at his expectant mother. Perhaps the child's desire to survive took over. He pointed at the fireworks outside the window. Beautiful. Nan 11 laughed. How was so smart at such a young age. He would definitely be a wise king when he grew up. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 695. The New Year's Eve is destined to be noisy and joyous. Lanterns of various shapes are hung on both sides of the long street outside the palace. The fireworks are dazzling and the sound of fireworks and firecrackers is deafening. Ministers are busy staying up with their parents, wives, and children, and ordinary people are busy with New Year's Eve dinner and pasting spring festival couplets. The various melon seeds and candied fruits on the street are booming. Unlike the prosperity and noise outside, the priest's hall is solemn and quiet. The respected high priest takes many servants to bathe and burn incense, praying for the blessing of the gods, so that Dongling will prosper year after year and the country will be peaceful and the people will be safe. The high priest in a white robe is followed by Zhanruo, who has been in the priest's hall for more than a year. The handsome and elegant young man is wearing a snow-white robe. He looks up at the gods, and his eyes are full of awe of the gods, as well as piety and hope for the blessing of the person in his heart. This night passed quickly, and time passed unconsciously in the laughter. Take a bath and go to bed, and fall asleep. The next morning, before the sun was fully up, Nan 11 and Rong Yu woke up. How was still sleeping. Nan 11 got up very quietly, not wanting to disturb her son who was sleeping soundly. Today is the first day of the first month of the new year. You can't sleep in. Someone will come to the palace to pay New Year's greetings soon. On the one hand, it is the palace rules and etiquette, and on the other hand, Nan 11 wants to have fun together on the first day of the new year. Several female officials in charge of the palace took the palace servants to make dumplings of various flavors early in the morning. They made a fuss by themselves, and at the request of Her Majesty the Queen, they made some silver coins. Whoever eats it means good fortune, and it also brings the atmosphere of the new year to the Dajhan Palace. The first to arrive were Xian Yuanchen and Lin Xie. After Nan 11 granted the marriage, the young couple lived a warm and peaceful life after marriage without any twists and turns. Lin Xie, who had experienced a fruitless marriage, was a person who could endure loneliness and had a relatively calm and quiet mind. When Xian Yuanchen went to court, she stayed at home to take care of Chiao. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law got along very well, and got along like mother and daughter, without any grudges. Xian Yuanchen and Lin Xie had a mutual affection from the beginning to a deepening relationship after marriage, which was gradually soaked with sweetness. Although they did not often appear in the sight of the noble ladies and princes of the imperial capital, they guarded their own stable years in a corner. After 8 months of marriage, they finally announced the good news last month. The second to arrive were Chu Nanyi and Qingling. After the two got married, Her Majesty the Queen gave them a month's vacation, but they would go to the palace from time to time to check the pulse of the regent and Her Majesty. Qingling was a female doctor and was used to getting up early. Today was the first day of the new year, so she and Chu Nanyi naturally got up early and entered the palace. Then came Xianyuan Qi and Chu Hong'ai, Xianyuan Jia and Lu Konglin, the legitimate son of the prime minister's family, Qingyang and Yunyu, and the last to arrive were Xianyuan Yao and Xiejin. Almost all the couples in front of him were arranged by Nan 11. Most of the women who got married early were pregnant. In addition, Nan 11 herself was pregnant. Looking around, only Chu Hong'ai and Qingling were still single. Yinyu, Linjia, and Xianyuanjia were not pregnant yet. Her Majesty the Queen asked them to sit quietly. They didn't need to kneel or help with anything. They just needed to sit quietly. There were couples in front of him. Only Xiejin and Xianyuan Yao, two handsome and dazzling men, had extraordinary looks and outstanding temperament. They looked a bit out of place in front of the newlywed couples. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 696. Today is really lively. Chu Nanyi turned around and glanced at the people present, and his eyes fell on Xiejin's face. As the legitimate son of the Xie family, today is the first day of the Lunar New Year. Shouldn't you stay at home and be with Mr. Xie? Let's eat dumplings together, Mrs. Xie. Xiejin's voice was careless and lazy. I just like to come here, wish His Majesty and the regent a happy new year, and eat dumplings by the way, can't you? Okay. Of course. Who dares to say that what Master Xieju wants to do cannot be done? Where is Prince Yao? Chu Nanyi turned to look at Xianyuan Yao and asked knowingly, Prince Yao didn't stay in the military camp to eat dumplings with the soldiers today. Training is quite hard during this period. They can eat more if they can't see me. Xianyuan Yao said, if I really go, I'm afraid they won't be able to eat anymore. It's rare to relax on the first day of the new year, so I can let them eat more. They keep you in a good mood throughout the day. Although this reason is indeed true, the main reason is that it is rare to have a holiday. Xiejin pestered him so much that he would not let him return to the military camp. He even pretended to give the soldiers a holiday so that they could enjoy the absence of the general. Feel. Xianyuan Yao doesn't necessarily obey Xiejin's words now, but a breakup is better than a wedding, so naturally she wants to spend a few days with him. Hearing this, Chu Nanyi smiled meaningfully. Training should be done step by step. The innocent soldiers cannot bear all the delays made by Prince Yao himself. The soldiers under my command didn't say anything, but you have a lot of opinions. Do you want to rectify the injustice for them? Xianyuan Yao glanced at him. Besides, I also want to come and wish His Majesty and the Lord a happy new year. What do you think? I don't dare to have any opinions. Chu Nanyi shook his head slowly, with an extremely calm and elegant attitude. I just feel that as a general, we should distinguish between public and private affairs, and we should not let the soldiers bear unnecessary hardships because of their own selfishness. Xianyuan Yao frowned and couldn't help but want to slap his gentle face. In front of Her Majesty the Queen and the Lord, is he instigating a complaint? Want the Lord to teach him a lesson? Why are you so dark-hearted? Sure enough, after getting married, Chu Nanyi became unlovable, a smiling fox, just like Xiejin. Chu Nanyi, you are a doctor. Xianyuan Yao reminded him, don't forget the kindness of doctors. Are doctors kind? Chu Nanyi laughed and said nothing more. It can be seen that he is in a good mood today. Of course, People who have just been married are probably full of joy and are in a bright mood. By the way, Xian Yuanyao took out a medical book from his arms and gently hooked his shoulder. I didn't catch up with you on the day you got married, so I gave this to you as a wedding gift. Xiejin stared at his movements displeasedly. Yao Yao, please be careful. Chu Nanyi ignored him and silently glanced at Xian Yuanyao's hand, sending a broken medical book as a gift. Do you want it to be more shabby? You are a doctor. If this prince likes you, you should give him a medical book. Otherwise, what should you give? Xian Yuanyao glanced at him. If I say goodbye, it will not stop someone from impeaching you for corruption and bribery. When the time comes, even if you jump into the moat, you won't be able to escape. Chu Nanyi sneered. Then I should thank you. You're welcome, Xian Yuanyao said calmly. If you don't want it, you can just refuse. I won't force you. He also broke the medical book. Listen to what people say. Chu Nanyi took the medical book from his hand, opened it and read, Qingling, this medical book is for you. I thought you weren't interested, Xian Yuanyao sneered, and had to let go of Chu Nanyi's shoulders under the warning in Xiejin's eyes. Qingling reached out to take it and said to Xian Yuanyao, thank you, Prince Yao. Xian Yuanyao had no idea about the woman. Hearing this, he smiled gently and said, you're welcome. Second young master Chu recently got married. He was probably so happy that he forgot about everything. Xiejin said in a calm tone, have you thanked the emperor for his kindness today? Chu Nanyi said, of course, Her Majesty the Queen's grace will not be forgotten. Nan 11 sat on the brocade couch and listened to their bickering. She couldn't help but raise a smile on her lips, and said in a light voice, do you think that I and the regent don't exist? Xian Yuanyao was startled and quietly glanced in a certain direction. His master was sitting aside drinking tea, but he didn't see any special expression. So Xian Yuanyao looked at Xiejin and Chu Nanyi, and scolded them righteously, Your Majesty and the regent both pay attention to propriety in front of them. They don't have any rules about respect and inferiority. How can they be decent? Chu Nanyi's mouth twitched. Xiejin's expression paused slightly, and then he glanced at the little leopard, and an undetectable smile flashed across his eyes. Lu Konglin couldn't help but look a little surprised when he listened to the three people talking. If nothing else, there was Xian Yuanyao, the heir apparent of the royal family, with noble status and pure blood, who was in charge of the military power of the Obsidian army, while Chu Nanyi was just a concubine of the Chu family. Even if he was lucky enough to get it, Your Majesty granted you a marriage, but you still don't have any official position. How dare he tease Prince Yao so easily? As we all know, Xiejin, the ninth master of the Xie family, is an arrogant master who doesn't take anyone seriously. Looking at the entire imperial capital, there are really not many young masters from powerful families who can catch his eye. Recently, he seems to be the only one who has the same relationship with this Prince Yao. Close. But he actually took the initiative to talk to the concubine of the Chu family. Lu Konglin glanced at the three of them thoughtfully. He always felt that these three people did not seem to have much restraint when they came in front of Her Majesty the Queen of the Dajhan Palace. Although they were not unrestrained, there was an indescribable intimacy and tacit understanding. How is Mr. Lu doing in his studies recently? Xiejin turned his head and glanced at Lu Konglin, with a smile on his lips. Although with a lovely wife by his side, it is inevitable that he will indulge in tenderness, but a man should still put his family, country, and the world first. Lu Konglin was silent for a moment, and smiled stiffly. Fortunately, I plan to take the imperial examination in 2 years. If I can enter the government, it would be the best. If not, I will go back to study for a few years. He is a man who is familiar with the books of sages. Although he is not so pedantic as to read books, it is rare to see people speaking like Xiejin, and he was only stiff for a while. It can be seen that Mr. Xie is in a particularly good mood today. Xian Yuanqi smiled lightly, his face was handsome and unparalleled, I can't hide his good complexion between his eyebrows. Xiejin said, same with you. All of them have been nourished by love, so no one should say anything about anyone else. After all, happiness in this world is roughly the same. Little Lord Xie, Xianyuanya raised his eyebrows, who gave you this nickname? Xiejin shrugged, the officials under the Ministry of Justice started it first, and then other officials in the court followed suit, and it spread like this. His father is Lord Xie, and he is also Lord Xie. The same title will inevitably lead to confusion, and colleagues can also be distinguished. He doesn't mind this. They can call him whatever they want. A few men chatted until the palace maids came in with plates of hot dumplings. The two female officials in charge of the Dajhan palace led the palace maids in one after another, brought dumplings with various flavors and fillings to the table, and turned around to invite Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent to take a seat. Nan 11 stood up and walked to the dining table and sat down. Rong Yufui sat beside her. Everyone else stood and didn't know how to allocate seats for a while. Everyone, please sit down. There's no need to be so reserved today, Nan 11 spoke, and motioned Chu Hongyi to sit beside her, followed by Lin Xie, Xianyuan Xie, Qingling, Yinyu, Yinchuang, and the women sat down one by one. Below Rong Yu sat Xianyuan Qi, Xianyuan Yao, Xiejin, Xianyuan Chen, Lu Konglin, Chu Nanyi, and Qing Yang. Originally, Lu Konglin wanted Chu Nanyi to sit next to Xiejin and Xianyuan Chen, because they seemed to be more familiar with each other, but Chu Nanyi was humble and took the initiative to give up his seat to Lu Konglin. So, except for Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent sitting together at the long table, the rest of the men sat on one side and the women sat on the other side, without paying attention to the separate tables for men and women, because it was all for fun. Moreover, many people present had actually eaten dumplings at home, because they planned to go to the palace to thank the emperor and wish him a happy new year, so everyone got up early and ate dumplings with their parents at home before dawn. At the moment, they were just having fun because there were many people, but they couldn't eat much. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 697. Whether you have eaten dumplings at home or not, you can eat a few more. Today is the first day of the Lunar New Year, so there is no need to stick to the rules. Nan 11 spoke warmly, with an approachable tone, everyone here is a gift from me. I am very happy to see you get married. As soon as these words came out, Xianyuan Jia and Xianyuan Chen, who were strict and abiding by the rules, subconsciously stood up to thank them. Just sit down, Nan 11 said with a smile, I am an enlightened queen when it comes to marriage. Whether it is Hongyi or Jia, well, there are two Jia here, and they are both very close to me. I feel like I have the potential to be a matchmaker. Hearing this, Rong Yu turned to look at her with a smile in his eyes. Your Majesty not only has the potential to be a matchmaker, but he is also very discerning. The couples who get married are happy and happy, even experienced matchmakers and matchmakers may not be able to achieve this. Nan 11 held his hand under the table, but her eyes fell on the women in front of her. If there is anything unsatisfactory in your marriage, or if your husband makes you feel wronged, please come to the palace at any time and tell me. Come fix them. After the words fell, the men were stunned. Yunyu was the first to raise her hand. Your Majesty, Qingyang bullies me every day. When did I bully you? Qingyang glared and quickly cried out, Yunyu, you can't just accuse others just because His Majesty favors you. Yunyu smiled proudly, you can also find someone who loves you to complain. Find someone to pamper him. Qingyang felt a chill. He didn't dare to have such an idea. His master would have been very kind if he didn't throw him out to feed the dogs. How could he have any unrealistic expectations? Miss Yunyu is showing off. Xiejing clicked his tongue, sure enough, it feels different to have a backer. Yunyu wrinkled her nose, Your Majesty, the 9th master of the Xie family looks like he deserves a beating. Xiejin raised his eyebrows. Then ask the regent to talk to him later. Nan 11 smiled gently and harmlessly, maybe we can go to the imperial study room to talk. Your Majesty, I know I made a mistake. Xiejin quickly apologized, I will definitely change my behavior in the future. Nan 11 laughed. Jin, don't be so cowardly. Xian Yuanyao encouraged him, a mere silver moon can make you sue for mercy? Where is your pride? Xiejin turned to look at him, what is pride? Can you eat it? Xian Yuanyao stared at him for a moment, then smiled slyly, that's right. People who have become the Xie family of Xian Yuan can't eat their pride. Family laws need to be kept in mind at all times. As soon as this was said, everyone at the table fell silent. Several pairs of eyes looked over in unison. Except for Chu Nanyi and Xian Yuanqi, most of the others looked surprised and confused. Xian Yuan Xie family? What does this mean? Especially Lu Konglin, who had never had much contact with Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao, he only thought they were joking at this time, but Yao Yao can't wait to announce our relationship in public. Xiejin reached out and pinched his face, ignoring the petrified women opposite him. His tone was doting, in that case, I will. Ahem. Xian Yuanqi coughed lightly, in front of His Majesty, you two, please be careful. Xiejin raised his eyebrows and glanced sideways at him, why don't we pay attention to propriety? The atmosphere at the table was very subtle. Linjia turned to look at Nan 11, with a bit of questioning in her eyes. She wanted to know if Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao were joking, but when Nan 11 nodded in the affirmative, she was slightly startled and began to look at Xian Yuanyao involuntarily. And Xiejin. Among such excellent people, even if the men who came today were all outstanding, they still couldn't hide the dazzling light of the two of them, but they were actually. Linjia thought that the last time he sat here to have a meal, it seemed like half a year ago. At that time, Xiejin thought that Her Majesty the Queen was going to marry him, so his behavior was extremely abnormal. If she had observed carefully at that time, she might have discovered that there were actually some signs between him and Xian Yuanyao. Linjia felt surprised and a little surprised. She was shocked by the courage of these two people to break the world and challenge morality. She was also surprised that Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent actually allowed such feelings to exist. But to be honest, the two of them are really a perfect match when they sit together. They are equally good looking and have the same extraordinary bearing. It's so right. Chu Nanyi and Chu Hong'ai had known about their relationship for a long time, so their reactions were very normal. Xian Yuanchen was a calm and reserved character, and behaved very silently and calmly whether he knew it or not. Yin Yu and Yin Shuang stayed in Dajhan every day. Gong, of course he knew everything, but he didn't say anything. As for the others, only the couple Xian Yuanjia and Lu Konglin are left. Everyone else knows or can guess a little bit. Xiejin had no intention of concealing it, and even wanted to tell the world about his relationship with Xian Yuanyao, but there had never been a suitable opportunity, so he didn't mind the people present looking at them with suspicion or surprise. I got a piece of silver. Xian Yuanyao suddenly spoke, breaking the delicate atmosphere, Your Majesty, is there any reward? Nan 11 glanced at him, if you eat broken silver, the silver will be yours. What reward do you want? Xian Yuanyao was slightly stunned, I thought whoever got the scraps of silver would be rewarded with a gold ingot. Yao Yao likes gold ingots. Xiejin smiled faintly, I remember that in Shangning before, Yao Yao was indifferent to several boxes of golden ingots. With one move, he destroyed the mechanism in the Yun family's underground secret room and almost lost his life. Those riches are buried forever. Xian Yuanyao's expression changed, and he glared at him unhappily, today is the first day of the new year, can you shut your mouth and stop talking about those things that spoil the fun? Does he have to let the master know about the stupid things he did? The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 698. Xiejin couldn't help but want to pinch his face, but in front of so many people, he was afraid that Xian Yuanyao's shame would make him angry, so he gave up. The dumpling meal was lively and weird. Fortunately, the people present were all smart and knowledgeable people. They knew how to eat more dumplings and talk less. Even if they did say some words of blessing and joy, they didn't care about Xian Yuanyao and Xiejin. Make unreasonable comments. After eating the dumplings, Lu Konglin and Xian Yuanjia were the first to leave. Xian Yuanchen and Linjia didn't stay too long, because there was only their mother left at home. They wanted to go back to accompany her early and didn't want her to be alone during the new year. Stay. Nan 11 sympathized with their filial piety and asked the palace servants to pack some freshly baked snacks from the imperial kitchen for her to take back to her mother-in-law. She also gave her a brocade box containing 10 white ingots of silver. Ah Chen, now the salary is not much. You can buy more clothes and jewelry for your mother-in-law and yourself on weekdays. If you don't have enough, tell me. Linjia thanked her respectfully. Thank you, Your Majesty. In fact, we have enough money. My mother-in-law doesn't go out on weekdays. I don't care about clothes and jewelry. Okay, don't be polite to me. Nan 11 smiled, take it and use it. Linjia thanked him again. Nan 11 looked at the two people leaving and couldn't help but think of the time in Dazhu. At that time, Linjia was just a naive little princess who didn't understand the world. She didn't hide her love for gold and silver jewelry. After experiencing some things, she seemed to instantly when you grow up, you can never go back to the past. But now Linjia has gone through a process of rebirth. He doesn't pay much attention to the appearance of luxury and wealth, but cherishes the stable and warm days now more, and he has a more calm demeanor. Your Majesty, Qingyang said respectfully, my subordinates have been a little tight lately. Nan 11 came back to her senses and looked at Qingyang, who was looking at her eagerly in front of her. She couldn't help but laugh. Why are you crying after me? You should cry to your master. Qingyang defended weakly, isn't my master your Majesty's husband? What does one family say to two families? Wrong. You glanced at him and said nothing. He reached out and took Hao who had been washed by the palace servants, and put him on his lap. He gave him some water and started to feed him dumplings. The movements were so familiar that they seemed to have been done countless times. Xian Yuanyao stared at the movements of his master, and couldn't help but wonder, during the time when his master was recuperating, did he start working part-time as a nanny? Why do you think he takes care of the children better than His Majesty? The most important thing is that the little prince looks so well behaved when he is in the master's arms. The father and son have similar facial contours and the same facial features and demeanor. There is an indescribable sense of harmony. Your Majesty, don't listen to him. Yunyu began to unravel the situation. The money Qingyang saved before has not been used yet. I have also saved some. It is enough for the time being. I don't need any reward from your Majesty. Qingyang looked at her dissatisfied. Yunyu, I am thinking about our children. Don't you have to spend money after the little guy in your belly is born? Why are you so stupid? Yunyu glared. What do you mean by the little guy in my belly? If it weren't for you dash. Okay, everyone who meets you has a share. Nan 11 interrupted her quickly, with a bit of laughter on her face. Bring Qingyang 10 pieces of silver. Qingyang smiled happily. Thank you, Your Majesty. Yunyu followed Xian. Thank you, Your Majesty. Nan 11 turned to look at Xian Yuanqi. Does Prince Qi need it? Xian Yuanqi smiled elegantly. I don't need it, thank you, Your Majesty. Nanyi. Nan 11's eyes fell on Chu Nanyi's face. What about you? Chu Nanyi's expression paused slightly, and then he said respectfully, I don't need it either. Thank you, Your Majesty. Although Chu Nanyi, who is in charge of the bank account, cannot use large sums of money without authorization, he still has plenty of money for small expenses. Tisk. Nan 11 turned to look at Hao who was eating dumplings in her father's arms. Do you want it? How took a bite of the dumplings, looked at her smiling mother with big eyes, and said in a sweet voice, yes. Everyone laughed. The whole world will belong to the prince from now on. How do you still care about a few coins? Xianyuan Yao said, instead of asking His Highness the Prince, Your Majesty should ask if I need it. Nan 11 was slightly surprised, are you short of money? Xianyuan Yao nodded, K. Yao Xiejin tugged on his hair, I can give you whatever you need. Don't join in the fun in front of His Majesty, or he will call you to the imperial study room to talk. Rong Yu said expressionlessly, you finished eating the dumplings, why don't you kneel down? Rong Yu had hardly spoken since he entered the Dajhan palace early in the morning. Now he kicked out the guests whenever he spoke. He was probably tired of hearing a few people talk nonsense, so he had to ask them to leave early. Unexpectedly, as soon as he said these words, Hao turned his head, his small face filled with coldness and nobility, and repeated his father's indifferent words in a soft and childish voice, kneel down. Everyone was stunned, and their expressions condensed for a moment. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 699. After a while, Xianyuan Qi and Chu Hong'ai resigned and left. Qingyang and Yunyu originally planned to stay in the Dajhan palace to serve, but Nan 11 forced them to go back to rest because of Yunyu's pregnancy, so the two had to resign. Xianyuan Yao and Xiejin stared at Hao for a while, until Rong Yu said, do you need me to lend you my son for another day? They both shook their heads and quickly left. Although the little prince is easy to take care of, they don't mind the helper taking care of the child, but it is rare to have a holiday, and no matter how interesting the child is, two people can't be as comfortable and happy as they can spend the night without being disturbed. The noise in the morning became quiet again as couples left. Only the newlyweds Chu Nanyi and Qing Ling were left. After Hao had eaten, the palace people began to clean up the aftermath. Rong Yu moved to the brocade couch in front of the window and sat down. Chu Nanyi asked Qing Ling and Yin's Huang to leave. He took the little prince to play while he stepped forward to carefully check Rong Yu's pulse and inquire about his recent physical condition. The soreness on rainy days should be much better. Chu Nanyi knelt down in front of the brocade couch and said with a deep eyebrow, continue to take the decoction for a while, and the number of medicinal baths can be reduced to once every 5 days. Rong Yu said nothing. After the new year and the beginning of spring, there is no need to keep warm anymore. Chu Nanyi said, turning to look at Nan 11, Your Majesty, don't worry too much. As long as you don't catch cold again in the future and don't blow cold wind often, Your Majesty's body will slowly recover, getting better. Nan 11 hummed, thank you for your hard work. It's my duty, it's not hard work. Chu Nanyi said, I'll go and prepare today's medicine for you. Nan 11 nodded. Qing Ling stayed in the palace to take care of the little prince with Yin Shuang. Rong Yu and Nan 11 enjoyed the moment of silence after everyone left. The sun shone in through the window and fell on the two of them. The warm feeling caressed the senses, making people feel relaxed. Calm down. Nan 11 stood up and walked to Rong Yu, slowly snuggled into his arms, turned to look out the window. Another year has passed. Rong Yu stretched out his hand to wrap his arms around her, and his voice became softer unconsciously, time flies by so fast. It's so fast that people can't help but want to keep time and freeze it forever. Nan 11 was about to say something when her eyes suddenly paused and she looked at the man in white robe who walked in from outside the palace gate in astonishment, Zhanruo. Rong Yu frowned and turned to look over. It is indeed Zhanruo. The man I hadn't seen for a long time had almost forgotten his existence. I didn't expect that at this warm and beautiful time, he would appear like a ghost and disturb other people's peace. Nan 11 stood up from Rong Yu's arms. Sister, Jean-Ruoki entered the hall regardless of what the two of them thought. I want to eat dumplings. Nan 11 turned to look at him. You haven't eaten yet. I prayed all night last night, and I'm still hungry until now, Jean-Ruo said pitifully. I just entered the palace and saw that they had all gone out. They were all able to get up early. Nan 11 came closer and looked at his delicate features up and down. How was your stay in the priest's hall during this time? You seem to have become thinner. His skin is getting paler, and against the white robe on his body, he feels as if he is riding the wind and returning home. No one cares or loves you, so of course you will lose weight. Zanruo held her arm. Sister, I miss you. Before she finished speaking, someone had already waved her arm away, and Nan 11 was brought into Rong Yu's arms. Jean-Ruo stared coldly at the possessive Rong Yu. Can you disappear for a while? Rong Yu's eyebrows are cold and indifferent. How can there be any tenderness at all? Prepare some dumplings for Prince Zanruo after Nan 11 ordered. Her eyes returned to Zanruo's face. Are you planning to stay in the priest's hall in the future? His calm expression seemed to be completely unconcerned with the sparking hostility between the two men at this moment. How is that possible? Jean-Ruo curled his lips. I'm going back to your country in the next 2 days. Huh? Nan 11 was surprised. Are you going back now? There's nothing to do if you stay here. Zanruo walked to the table and sat down. I stayed in the priest's hall before to pray for my sister and Dongling, and also to cultivate myself and stay away from annoying people. This time I went back Yuguo. I plan to be a prince with an immortal spirit, and from now on I will tell people's fortunes and make a living. Nan 11 was silent for a long time. How about eating together? Although the Yu kingdom is not big, he is still a prince, but he has been reduced to a mere breadwinner? Zanruo glanced at her. Actually, I can't hold back the secret, so I just want to tell people's fortunes. Nan 11 frowned, slowly sat down next to him, and watched as the palace servants brought several plates of dumplings to Jean-Ruo. There are all kinds of fillings. You can eat more depending on which one you like. Thank you, sister. Zanruo glanced at Rong Yu as if to demonstrate, sister still loves me. Rong Yu had a cold expression and was too lazy to talk to him. As long as he doesn't touch Nan 11, even if he eats all the dumplings, Rong Yu won't even bother to say that he is a loser. Isn't it bad to reveal too many secrets? Nan 11 frowned. What if there are any bad consequences? It's okay, Jean-Ruo said in a calm tone. I don't care about life or death. Anyway, I have nothing to worry about in this life, and I don't worry about implicating my wife and children. I will die when I love you, and I will live as long as I can be more relaxed and relaxed. Nan 11 frowned. Don't say that. Don't worry, sister. Zanruo smiled. There won't be any serious consequences, I know it. Nan 11 hummed. You can come over anytime you want, but you have to change your temper and don't speak rudely to Rong Yu again. Jean-Ruo pouted, although he was still a little unhappy, but after staying in the priest's hall for so long, his temper had indeed calmed down a lot. Even if he didn't want to, he could only accept many things. After all, he didn't want to make Nan 11 unhappy all the time. After eating some dumplings quietly, Zanruo turned to look at Nan 11, his eyes falling on her belly. Why is sister pregnant again? One after another. Don't you worry about losing power. Don't worry. Zanruo couldn't help but want to pout again. Nan 11 reached out and poked his forehead, smiling gently. When I go back, I will find a suitable girl to marry, and also experience what it feels like to care about someone. Then you will understand how we feel. Rong Yu watched her movements silently, frowning slightly. I love you so much that I even lose my pride and dignity. I don't want to care about you like this. Jean-Ruo sighed. I will never be tainted by love in this life. It's too hurtful. I like to be alone and free. I have no worries. I can come to see my sister anytime I want, I can say whatever I want at any time, I don't have to worry about the ruthlessness of heaven, I don't have to worry about human relationships, I don't have to think about anything, it's so relaxing. Nan 11 looked at him silently, frowning slightly, feeling that his idea was a bit extreme, but no one understood his idea better than her, so she said calmly, you can decide for yourself, don't feel wronged. No one will wrong me if I feel wronged. Genre 8 dumplings, the only person I care about now is Sister A. Apart from Sister A, I don't care about the life or death of anyone else. Nan 11 was silent for a moment, and suddenly an idea flashed in her mind, Genre. Nan 11 caressed her abdomen, is this baby in my belly a boy or a girl? Zanruo was silent for a moment, sister, why do you ask this? Nan 11 smiled lightly, originally, I wanted to have both children, but Hauer said that this baby is a younger brother. Want to have both children? Zanruo frowned. Although he couldn't bear it, he still wanted to tell her the truth, what the little prince said is probably true. Nan 11. Has Hauer's prediction come true? Sister, don't be too disappointed, Zanruo said, if sister really wants a daughter, she can have another one. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows, the next one will be a daughter. Zanruo thought for a while, it is destiny to have a boy or a girl. However, I have divined for my sister during this period. My eldest son will be an emperor star and my second son will be a general star. If my sister does not plan to have a princess, that is the result of the general star assisting the emperor star, and Dongling will continue to prosper for hundreds of years. Century. Nan 11 frowned, what if I want a daughter? That could be a completely different outcome. Rong Yu frowned and said in a cold voice, speak directly if you have something to say. Why are you playing riddles? Zanruo gave him a cold look, the more you want to know, the less I want to tell you. Zanruo Nan 11 smiled lightly, I want to know too. Zanruo was silent for a moment, and then compromised, then I will tell Sister A alone, and she will decide whether to have a daughter or not. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 700. Nan 11 nodded slowly, yes. Zanruo glanced sideways at Rong Yu, feeling a rare sense of pride in winning a victory, please, Lord Regent, step aside. Rong Yu was silent, with an expression of indifference and indifference. Forget it. Zanruo put down his chopsticks when he was full, stood up and pulled Nan 11 out, sister, let's go out and say that the regent is not allowed to follow, otherwise I won't say anything. Rong Yu endured it for a moment, but still couldn't hold it back. He stretched out his hand and pulled Nan 11 back into his arms, you don't want to talk if you like. Nan 11 was simply impressed by these two people. She shook Rong Yu's hand reassuringly and turned to look at Zanruo, let me tell you what you have to say. Whether or not to have a daughter is a matter between Rong Yu and me. I can't make the decision alone. Zanruo stared at Rong Yu. Rong Yu didn't want to pay attention to him at all. He helped Nan 11 to sit down on the soft couch and poured her a cup of tea, completely ignoring Zanruo's presence. The hexagram shows that this woman is cold and will encounter love disasters. She may only live to be 20 years old, Zanruo said, but if you put yourself to death and then live, death may not be real death. In short, life is quite ups and downs. In the end her destiny is truly in her own hands. Nan 11 frowned, can you be more detailed? It means he has a cold temperament, just like the regent of your family. If you don't love him, he will do it. If you love him, he will risk his life. Zanruo's voice was slightly stuck, and she really didn't want to say a single good word about Rong Yu. After encountering a love disaster, there will be a rebirth at the risk of death. No one can see her fate after rebirth, it is completely in her own hands. Can't you see it? Rong Yu frowned, can't the high priest see it either? Zanruo shrugged, what I can't see means that she may not stay in Dongling in the future. If you raise a daughter, it may be in vain. Nan 11 imagined a daughter with a temperament similar to Rong Yu's, and frowned. If a girl is so cold, Even if she likes someone, she will be scared away. How can there be love disaster? If she won't stay in Tanglin, then where will she go? Even if she goes to other countries, the Juxiao Pavilion's power is present in the Juzhu continent, so she and Rong Yu should know where she is. Nan 11 pondered for a moment, what does this have to do with whether Dongling Shiji is prosperous? Because she is the biggest factor that determines whether the 9 countries in the world can be unified. During the New Year holiday, in addition to family reunions and routine New Year greetings among relatives and friends, matchmakers who specialize in matching marriages will also seize this rare opportunity and act non-stop. Since ancient times, it has been the case that men should be married when they are young, and women should be married when they are young. Especially in the rich and powerful families of the imperial capital, when their sons or daughters reach the marriageable age, they will hire reliable matchmakers to help them propose marriages. Excellent young men are the husbands that girls dream of marrying, and girls with both talent and beauty will also be attracted by them. The matchmaker has crossed the threshold. No, the outstanding legitimate son of Xie Xiaofu's family was noticed, and matchmakers started coming to his door on the second day of the Lunar New Year. Jin'er, Mrs. Xie's expression was subtle. Yes, the 9th young master is already young, right? Now that he has passed the imperial examination and his career is going smoothly, should we consider marrying a virtuous wife so that she can take care of the 9th young master's daily life? Zhang, a famous matchmaker in the imperial capital, played 3 tricks with a sharp tongue. There is a suitable candidate right now. Jin'er already has someone she likes. Mrs. Xie interrupted in time, not letting the matchmaker tell the woman's name. I'm sorry, I made your trip in vain. The matchmaker's voice faltered, as if she didn't believe it. 9th young master has someone he likes. It's absolutely true, Mrs. Xie said, and asked the maid to get some scraps of silver. It's a happy new year. You can take this scrap of silver back and buy 2 new clothes. Matchmaker Zhang came here with full confidence. Unexpectedly, she was stillborn before she finished speaking. She suddenly felt that the money was no longer good, and frowned tightly. Whose girl is this? Mrs. Xie thought about it and felt that it was up to him to decide what happened to her son. When he decided to make it public and let everyone know, it was also his own business. It was best for her not to interfere. Of course, in order to prevent matchmakers from visiting, it would not be good to make up an unknown woman, so Mrs. I asked his father to take care of his son's lifelong affairs. Upon hearing this, matchmaker Zhang knew that there was no chance, so she had to take the money and leave. Mrs. Xie sat in the hall and pondered. Maybe she should ask her son how to announce the matter between him and Yao Yao. When will it be announced to the world? When the age of marriage is reached, matchmakers will come one after another if this continues, and they will never give up until the Xie family has a happy event. Where is the 9th young master now? The maid replied, I'm going out, with Prince Yao. Mrs. Xie frowned. These 2 children are tired of staying together all day. Why haven't you thought about how to finalize this matter? Although both parents had met and agreed to the matter, there was no formal etiquette or public announcement. The matchmakers outside didn't know that Xie Zhuyi liked a man. However, before Mrs. Xie could speak, rumors had already spread. I heard that the 9th master of the Xie family likes men. Do you know if it is true or not? Isn't it? Doesn't he always like to hang out in flowers and be very romantic? Maybe it's just a cover-up. Which man does he like? Those beautiful boys sent from northern Xinjiang before. You all can't imagine that that person is actually the Prince of Huainan. What? A startled voice, like a thunderclap. Impossible. The king of Huainan would never agree to such a thing. This is simply, it is completely immoral and shameless. If this is true, is it a common shame for the Xie family and the royal family? If Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent knew about this, they would definitely not sit idly by. It is too unorthodox and shocking. What do you know? One of them said mysteriously in a self-righteous tone. If the Prince of Waynan is with the ninth master of the Sia family, what does it mean? Don't you know? What does it mean? The man held the teacup, and the corner of his mouth raised a pretended mysterious smile. Two men together means that they will not have heirs. You mean? Think about it yourself.